UFC 292 takes place in only a matter of hours, and I'm going to go through my last-minute detailed prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event. I'm not just saying who I believe is going to win and why. I did that earlier this week. I'm trying to predict how every single minute of each fight is going to go, what submission will be achieved if there is going to be a submission, what KO will happen and what limb will be used to get that KO, and what the scorecards will read if it does go to a decision. Let's start straight away with the early prelim opener of Maryna Moroz versus Karine Silva. I'm going to go with Karine Silva, and I'm going to pick her to win this fight by decision. I think she's going to, of course, it's a women's MMA fight, so there's a high likelihood of it, but I'm not saying why. I'm saying what I think is going to happen. I reckon we're going to see a situation where both of these women are a little bit hesitant on the feet. Karine Silva's going to be getting a slight edge on the feet in this fight. And then towards the end of these rounds, I think she's going to be able to get a takedown. And I think because Maryna Moroz, I shouldn't be saying this, but this is why I think it's going to happen and what I see happening. Because Maryna Moroz subbed her the first time with an armbar, I think that maybe we're going to see her a little bit too comfortable on bottom position, and then Karine Silva's going to ride out top position for the rest of each of those rounds, earning herself a 30-27 unanimous decision win over Karine Silva. We move on. Up the card, Andrea Lee versus Natalia Silva. Good for them getting these two out of the way straight away. I'm going to go with Natalia Silva, and I'm going to pick her to win this fight again by decision. I think she's going to outstrike Andrea Lee. I think her boxing's going to be way too crisp. I want to get into the real ones that I really have a good read on, but I think Natalia Silva's boxing's going to be too crisp, and I think she's going to be tagging up Andrea Lee with the boxing. Andrea Lee's going to be throwing kicks out there. I can see her throwing front kicks and body kicks, but I can see Natalia Silva waiting for those kicks to come and landing shots as they do. So maybe Andrea Lee throws a big body kick or a front kick, but then we're going to see Natalia Silva sting her with a 1-2 while she's on one leg. And I think as the fight goes on, we're going to see more and more visible damage on Andrea Lee's face, and Natalia Silva will win this fight 30-27, maybe 30-26, scoring a few knockdowns at some moments, who knows. We move on. Gerald Meerschaert versus Andre Petroski. I think we're going to see Andre Petroski get an arm triangle submission win over Gerald Meerschaert. Guess when? In round 3. I think it's going to be round 3. I think round 1, we're going to see both of these guys on the feet for a little bit. Very, very hesitant to do anything. And I think towards the end of round 1, we're going to see Petroski shoot a takedown because he wants to wait until they're a little bit less dry, so less submissions can be locked up by Meerschaert potentially. So I think in round 1, they're going to get scrappy. We might spend some time against the cage and over-under position, but I think Petroski's going to be getting a slight edge on the feet, and I think he's going to be landing some really good kicks. But to the legs, Gerald Meerschaert is going to be trying to go for that body kick that he likes to do. I think that's where the takedown's going to take place at the end of round 1. Petroski's going to catch that kick and dump Meerschaert on the ground. And I think that's going to continue as the fight goes on. I think round 2 might see a similar situation where Meerschaert throws that big telegraphed body kick and Petroski's going to catch it, or maybe just charge him as he does it and get a takedown from that position. Maybe there's some moments where they scramble, Meerschaert reverses position. Maybe Meerschaert goes for a sub and ends up on his knees, works his way back up to a nice position on the waist of Andre Petroski, and then Petroski reverses it, ends up back on top. We're going to see a lot of transitions on the ground in round 2, but I think Petroski's going to out-hustle him in those moments, and I think we're going to start to see towards the end of round 2, Gerald Meerschaert, the legendary GM3, starting to look a little bit fed up on the ground, looking up at the clock, breathing heavy. Andre Petroski's in half guard on top, landing little punches over and over again that are annoying Gerald Meerschaert, winning himself the second round. And I think we're going to see a similar situation in round 3. This time Petroski landing good shots on the feet. Meerschaert might shoot a takedown. Petroski might scramble with him a little bit to stuff that takedown, end up on top again. I just think the scrambling ability of Petroski is going to way outmatch the grappling ability of Gerald Meerschaert. And I think he's going to settle in dominant position on the ground. I don't see him laying in full guard on top of Gerald Meerschaert. I see him immediately landing in half guard, landing with like sort of the back taken-ish, if you know what I'm saying. Side control as well. I think these are positions where Petroski can do well, and eventually I think Gerald Meerschaert's going to be getting ragdolled a little bit, getting beaten up, opts to go to his back, and in that transition where he goes to his back, I think Andre Petroski's going to go for an arm triangle and get it by submission in the 3rd round. We move on. Up the card, Cody Gibson versus Brad Katona. I'm going to go with Brad Katona 29-28 decision. I think Cody Gibson is going to have a really good first round against Brad Katona, but Brad Katona is going to come back in a second and third to try and make something happen there. It's actually a good thing that I'm doing this video because I haven't even made predictions for these fights yet. But I think Brad Katona is going to win this fight by 29-28 decision. Round 1, we might see Cody Gibson charge him, looking for some big KO blows. Brad Katona looking a little bit hesitant on the feet, but still landing some good shots. Maybe the pair of them are landing some leg kicks. Then Cody Gibson's going to shoot. Katona might stuff it, but maybe give up his back in the process as they're still going for it, and Cody Gibson's desperately looking for that takedown. Maybe Cody Gibson gets the back of Brad Katona towards the end of round 1 and starts punching him in that position, but Brad Katona's going to survive that round. Round 2, I think Brad Katona's going to be a little bit better on the feet. Cody Gibson's going to try shooting takedowns. This time, Brad Katona's able to stuff those takedowns, and you can see slowly but surely, Cody Gibson's going to start to slow down, get a little bit more tired, and Brad Katona's going to start landing some better shots on the feet after stuffing those takedowns. Then in round 3, I think when Brad Katona stuffs the takedowns of Cody Gibson, he's going to work his way to top position instead. So he's going to stuff them. Maybe Cody Gibson pulls a Jake Hadley and is just holding on a single leg in north-south position, and Katona's punching his body. Then Katona sort of gets rolled over by Brad Katona. Gibson gets rolled over by Brad Katona. Have I been saying Katona this whole time? Whatever. Cody Gibson might opt to pull guard. He's really tired now. He's desperate for these takedowns. And I think Katona's going to just sort of lay on top in half guard and have a really uneventful 29-28 decision based on those last 2 rounds. We move on, making him, by the way, the first double tough winner in history, which might be crazy. And I can just see that happening for some reason. We move on. Kurt Holobaugh versus Austin Hubbard. Story of this fight, in my opinion, the teep of Hubbard, the jab of Hubbard. I think those are going to be some big tools that he's going to use. I can see Kurt Holobaugh pressuring forwards against Austin Hubbard, and I can see Austin Hubbard jabbing as he comes in, teeping the body, maybe going with some kicks up high to bring up the guard of Kurt Holobaugh. Holobaugh's going to be swinging big hooks, but I think as he does so, Hubbard's going to be covering up, moving backwards quite a bit, jabbing him as he comes forward. Holobaugh's going to be pressuring him quite a bit, and I can see Hubbard shooting a takedown in this fight. Maybe not getting it at first, but then Holobaugh, I have another vision of this fight, okay? Now, I might be wrong, but I like to double down on these things. I think Holobaugh's going to pull his guillotine on Austin Hubbard. I don't think it's going to work. I don't like relying on guillotines to get a win. So I think that Kurt Holobaugh is going to latch up a guillotine in round 1, squeeze on it hard, not really have it in. Then later in round 1, when Austin Hubbard's being pressured back again, Holobaugh's going to pull another guillotine on him. This one's looking tight, but Hubbard's going to get past the legs of Kurt Holobaugh and maybe end up in side control on top. I think from that moment, we're going to see Austin Hubbard start to take over. We're going to see Holobaugh's arms gas out a little bit from pulling those guillotines. Maybe he pulls a half-assed one in the middle of round 2. Austin Hubbard passes over his guard from it, gets into side control. Holobaugh starts covering up. Maybe he's cut from earlier in the fight. Maybe his nose is busted from the jab of Austin Hubbard. And then we're going to see Austin Hubbard take mount, get the back locked in, land some big shots. Holobaugh turns back around to mount position. Austin Hubbard's still on top of him, landing big shots. TKO, late round 2 for Austin Hubbard is what I'm going to go for here. We move on. Up the card, Gregory Rodrigues versus Denis Tiuliulin. I have an interesting prediction about this one. I'm going to go with a late first round KO from Gregory Rodrigues, but there's some stipulations to it, okay? Listen up. I think Gregory Rodrigues is going to have Denis Tiuliulin nervous in the first round. I think he's going to be landing some big shots, but I think as Tiuliulin takes some of those big shots, he's going to start to grow in confidence. However, I'm still going to give the first round to Gregory Rodrigues. I'll say late second round KO, actually. I'll go with late second round. I think Tiuliulin's going to be doing all right on the feet, more than people expected early on in the first, but I think Gregory Rodrigues is going to shoot on him and start beating him up on the ground towards the end of round 1, giving him that round. So I think Tiuliulin's going to take a beating in round 1. Rodrigues shoots a takedown towards the end, but Tiuliulin was doing good on the feet. Very important to remember in my hypothetical situation here. Round 2. I think Tiuliulin's going to be doing all right. Maybe he stuffs a takedown this time. And all of a sudden, things are maybe not starting to go the way of Gregory Rodrigues too much. Tiuliulin's landing some decent shots. He's starting to get confident on the feet. Boom. He tries backing up Rodrigues. He tries landing shots in the pocket. Rodrigues switches him off. I think it's going to be a similar fight to Gregory Rodrigues versus Bruno Ferreira, which was Gregory Rodrigues' last fight, where I think it's going to be similar to that. Also, Park Yin-yong tried to do the same thing to Rodrigues, and Rodrigues chinned him for it as well. So I'm going to go Gregory Rodrigues in that manner. Things are starting to look like they're going to turn, and he lands that big shot on Tiuliulin coming in and puts him away. We move on. Up the card, Chris Weidman versus Brad Tavares. I see a very boring fight. I see a hesitant Weidman. I don't think he's going to look himself. I think he's going to be hesitating on a lot of the stuff that he throws. And I think we're going to see Brad Tavares just outboxing Weidman. Weidman shooting takedowns, but maybe failing them. And Brad Tavares being a bit busier in the clinch. And I think we can see a lot of stuff at range that where not really much is going on. Both guys are landing decent shots. But I don't see Weidman ragdolling Tavares. Tavares is a very, very difficult man to take down. Maybe Weidman might get one at one point, but Tavares works back up. But I can see a lot of this fight up against a cage. And I think Weidman's going to be on the dumb, silly, been KO'd a few times in his career so far mindset of, I'm against a cage, I'm controlling him, so I'm winning. And I think Tavares, who's been in the game recently for a bit longer, he's been a bit more active recently, is going to know about the rules a bit more, start punching to the body in the clinch, kneeing the body in the clinch, being a bit busier with the damage. And I think we're going to see at the end of this a 29-28 decision win to Tavares, where Weidman is almost like delusionally holding his hand up at the end of the fight, but Tavares has clearly done more damage. So I'm going to go 29-28 Tavares. I could even see a moment in this fight if Weidman does get it taken, does take down Tavares, or is in on something against a cage, or is holding Tavares against a cage, where we see this new rule of separating these fighters implemented. I can see an example of that in this one. So I'm going to go with Tavares by decision, competitive, but clear. We move on. Up the card, Marlon Vera versus Pedro Munhoz. I think Pedro Munhoz is going to wreck the legs of Marlon Vera in this fight. I really do. And I think it's going to get worse and worse for Vera as the fight goes on. First of all, I think Vera's going to start the fight with something crazy. He had his last fight where he didn't really do too much, and he almost didn't even do enough to win. Like, he didn't switch on enough to win and do anything too urgent. So I think he's going to start this fight trying to switch himself on early by going for like a big jump knee, a jumping side kick to the face on Munhoz, but it's not going to land, and he's going to chuckle at it and do a little emote in the middle of the cage. Munhoz is going to get back on him, though. I think this fight is going to be shown to be great for Munhoz, because I think he's going to be one of the first fighters who isn't really going to try and put it on Vera that much. Even Dominic Cruz, the elusive guy, was at times putting combinations together on Vera. So I think Munhoz, in the first round, is going to be moving very well on the outside, and I think Vera's going to try and go first in the first round. Then Munhoz is going to catch him with the counter shots. Vera is then going to try and mix up longer exchanges. Maybe Munhoz gets a takedown in the first round, ends up on top of Marlon Vera. Round 2 comes around. I think Vera is going to start to sit down on his shots a lot more at range. And I think this is going to open up the low kicks from Pedro Munhoz. I think he starts hacking at the inside leg, hacking at the outside leg, going to the calf as well, landing little shots to the body with little jabs and moving out as Vera is trying to catch him with big counter hooks and big shots over the top. And I think Vera's going to start to get frustrated, maybe shoot a takedown, doesn't really get it though. Munhoz turns around the clinch, steps back out into the center, and we're starting to see that Munhoz's kicks are starting to have a bit of an effect on Vera. Round 3, Vera's going to go aggressive, super aggressive, maybe have some moments where he lands like a front kick to the face and everyone goes, oh! But then Munhoz is going to take it. That's the problem. Vera's going to start loading up shots again, being a little bit emotional, trying to go for a finish in round 3 the way he was against Frankie Edgar. Maybe Munhoz gets a takedown, but Vera starts elbowing him from on bottom, cuts him open, works his way back up to his feet. But Munhoz is too good, and it's too late in the fight. He's still chopping at the legs of Marlon Vera, and he's still landing counter shots as Vera comes in trying to go first. So I think Munhoz gets it done by decision. Maybe 29-28. Maybe Vera does enough in the third round with the cut and like a big moment where he looks like he might have hurt Munhoz for a moment. But I think in round 3, I think overall Munhoz is at least going to win 29-28. And I think he will win those first 2 rounds. We move on. Up the card, Mario Bautista versus Damon Blackshear. I see domination from Mario Bautista. I really do see domination from Mario Bautista. I think they're going to be pretty even on the feet, but Bautista's going to be getting the better of it. So pretty competitive on the feet, but Bautista's going to be landing the better punches and just doing a little bit better than Damon Blackshear in general. Then I think Mario Bautista, after easing up the stand-up game for a bit and getting into the fight comfortability-wise, I think he's going to start shooting some takedowns. And I do think there's going to be a night and day grappling difference between the two of them. And I think he's going to end round 1 on the back of Damon Blackshear, landing big shots to Damon Blackshear. Damon Blackshear is going to look a little bit hopeless on his stall. Maybe try throwing some big moves in the second, maybe throw a head kick. But as he does so, maybe Bautista shoots at the same time, gets him off balance to the ground, works immediately into half guard, starts punching away. And I think as Damon Blackshear is like trying to shrimp away and get to the cage and scoot himself backwards, I think that might open up an opportunity for Mario Bautista to continue the pressure on the ground, end up in mount position, land some big shots on Damon Blackshear. Blackshear turns around, more big shots from Mario Bautista. Rear naked choke locked in for Bautista. Chokes out Damon Blackshear in round 2. We move on. Up the card, Ian Garry versus Neil Magny. I'm going to go with Ian Garry getting a KO over Neil Magny in the second round, I think is going to be. How do I see that happening? I think he's going to chop away at those legs really, really badly. One thing that's not the best when you're taking a fight on short notice is timing, and checking kicks takes a lot of good timing and a lot of practice to do, even for a guy with as much experience as Neil Magny. So I think there might be moments where Magny's holding Garry against a cage, but Gary's got underrated hip control. He's got very good balance. He has a judo background as well that people don't talk about. So I think he'll be able to reverse those positions and push away from Magny. And when he has Magny up against a cage, I can see a lot of him trying to do what Ponzinibbio did. Jab, jab, twos on Neil Magny. Some of them may land, some of the jabs may land, sometimes maybe the 2 will land, but they won't knock out Neil Magny yet. But he'll use that effectiveness with his hands to start chopping low on Neil Magny's legs. Maybe Magny fails a few takedowns. Garry's still chopping the legs on Neil Magny, moving backwards, chopping the legs, sort of like looking real comfortable in there, doing his hair a bit, you know what I mean, wiping something off of his face. Another big low kick from Ian Garry. Starts teeping the body, starts punching at the body as well, starts putting some combos together in round 1, still chewing at the leg of Neil Magny. Round 2, similar situation. Garry's still chewing up that leg, but this time, Magny's going to get a bit more aggressive. His leg's starting to feel it a little bit, and as he does, I can see him throwing a jab the way he does in that terrible technique fashion, and I can see Garry moving back and then stepping back into range with a 1-2 down the pipe and catching Magny from like a side angle and putting Magny down. Couple shots of follow-up on the ground. I think because it's Ian Garry, they might be quick to stop it, but Neil Magny's going to be covered up and there won't be much controversy about the stoppage. But I'm not seeing a clean KO. I'm seeing a TKO to a shelled up Magny on the ground. Ian Machado Garry via round 2 KO. We move on. Up the card, Zhang Weili versus Amanda Lemos. I'm going to go with Zhang Weili. What shall I go with here? I like to have fun with these sometimes. You know what I can see happening? Zhang Weili, crucifix, TKO, round 4. That's what I can see happening here. I can see Lemos making Zhang Weili very, very jittery on the feet in the first round. Very jittery. I'm going to predict another failed guillotine here, I think. I'm going to predict another failed guillotine because it seems like Lemos would jump something like that. And I think Zhang Weili's got the ability to escape such a position, or maybe the position wasn't even in the first place, and that's why Zhang Weili gets out of it. But I think it's going to be a very hesitant first round. Zhang Weili attacking the lead leg of Amanda Lemos, sticking her jab out there. Both girls landing some decent shots, but I don't see Lemos KOing her early. Maybe she does land some big ones, but it's not going to be a KO. And I see Zhang Weili being on the back foot, so I don't see Lemos carrying as much power as she might do if someone misses a punch on her and then she lands, like she did with a few of her other opponents that she's KO'd in her career. And I think as the fight goes on, after that guillotine in round 1 where Zhang Weili ends up on top, I think Zhang Weili is going to have a much better time grappling with Amanda Lemos. We're going to see a couple boring rounds in round 2 and 3 where Zhang Weili is just on top in half guard, doing total punches, annoying Lemos away. Lemos doing whatever she can to get back up, throwing up an armbar now and again that's not really effective. And I think in round 4, we're going to see Zhang Weili get her takedown, Lemos get immediately passed over, and Zhang Weili ends up in side control, pins down the arm, gets into the crucifix position, and starts landing little elbows, little punches on a gassed out, exhausted, sick of being on bottom position Amanda Lemos, who's then going to get called off by the ref for a TKO stoppage. Zhang Weili, crucifix with elbows or punches in round 4 or 3 against Amanda Lemos, utilizing her grappling outside of the first round. We move on. Up the card, Aljamain Sterling versus Sean O'Malley. Here's the one I'm going to give some intricate detail for. So, I reckon that Aljamain Sterling is going to destroy, I think he's going to destroy Sean O'Malley by round 2 TKO. That's what I think is going to happen. Now, I did ask Aljamain Sterling personally to Boston Crab Sean O'Malley. So if that happens, thank you very much, Aljamain Sterling. I'll take full credit for that. Because that would be crazy in Boston. Boston Crab on Sean O'Malley. That'd be crazy. Either way, I think Aljo's going to beat O'Malley. I think early on, Aljo's going to try and maybe get a bit of respect on the feet with a lot of feinting takedowns and then maybe swinging an uppercut. I think Aljo's going to be throwing a lot of kicks early as well, even though you'd expect O'Malley to be the guy throwing those types of things. I think O'Malley's going to keep it very boxing heavy in the early part of this fight. And I think Aljo is going to be throwing some like head kicks up there just to bring the guard up of Sean O'Malley. Eventually in the first round, probably about 2 minutes in, a minute and a half in, we're going to see Aljamain Sterling pressuring Sean O'Malley up against the cage. And this is the moment this fight is all about. O'Malley's going to be looking for the knee up the middle. Aljo's going to be looking for a takedown. I think this is the moment where everything will be dictated in this fight. Aljamain Sterling's backed him up against the cage. He's got him there. O'Malley's jittery, trying to do his one way, other way, then this way again to get out of it. But Aljo's still tracking him down. Eventually, he gets him into the corner of the cage. O'Malley plants his feet a bit. Aljo feints a level change. Little feint of a level change. O'Malley throws a big knee on one leg. And as he brings it back down after missing because it was a fake level change, Aljo then shoots the takedown on an O'Malley who's got his legs together, picks up O'Malley, dunks him on the ground, and he's in full guard against O'Malley. Landing decent shots, digging to the body on the ground a little bit, threatening a half guard step over. O'Malley might get his guard back and get wrist control, which he's pretty good at. Maybe he gets warned by the ref for grabbing gloves. Maybe he tries to grab the cage to get back up, and Aljo still drags him down to the floor, to the canvas. Then Aljo's going to be in full guard still. I think O'Malley might throw up a triangle attempt with about a minute to go in round one. I think this is going to be the beginning of the end for him. Throws up a triangle attempt. Aljamain Sterling easily escapes it, and as O'Malley does that, I think Aljo's going to sort of throw his legs to the side and get his head on the outside of O'Malley's triangle, and O'Malley will roll over to try and get up on his feet, and Aljo will pounce on the back from that failed triangle attempt. End up on the back of O'Malley. O'Malley's like standing with him, eventually goes down to one knee against the ground, starts focusing on fighting the hands. Aljo's on his back, landing some punches, top position. Round one's over. O'Malley's taking a bit of a beating. Round two, O'Malley's breathing heavy on his stool. The pressure's on. What happened, happened. He didn't want it to, but it's all happening now. Aljo's pretty confident in his stool as well. O'Malley's still looking for big shots on the feet. This time, Aljo might tag him on the feet with like a really over-exaggerated right hand as O'Malley's like got his hands down trying to stuff a takedown, and eventually they're going to end up against a cage. O'Malley looking up at the clock, maybe 3 minutes left in round two. Aljo's going to be punching him, kneeing his thigh in the clinch, chucking his arm over, getting a back take, dragging O'Malley a little bit. O'Malley gets back up. Aljo tries to put one hook in, but O'Malley stops it. They end up in the clinch again, over-under position. Aljo works for double underhooks, going to be a little bit stronger in the clinch, maybe get like an outside or inside trip on Sean O'Malley, end up on the ground again. O'Malley's going to be busy off of his back though. You're going to be looking for wrist control, grabbing the gloves, looking to readjust off the cage. And I think with the wrist control, I think he's going to try and manipulate Aljo into an armbar attempt that Aljo's going to escape. And again, the same thing's going to happen. O'Malley throws up his legs for an armbar, ends up on the ground, doesn't get the armbar. Aljo escapes out the back of it, ends up with a body lock on O'Malley, who's on his knees on the ground right now. Aljo puts two hooks in, beats up O'Malley a bit, tries a choke that O'Malley escapes. O'Malley rolls around into mount, gets beaten up a little bit more, rolls around again. Aljo beats him up a little bit more. Late round two, TKO from back mount to Aljamain Sterling over Sean O'Malley, who may tap to strikes. I'm not saying he's the type of guy who would, but I could see a situation like that, maybe, where the ref's trying to give O'Malley every chance he can, but Aljo's really starting to beat him up on the ground. So I'm going to go late second round TKO. Ref steps in. Aljo beats up O'Malley from back position. Toodle. Went the whole video of that burping, really. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Let's keep our good prediction streak going. Goodbye.